Hello and welcome back to Life as It Is with me, Dora Middleton. Before I continue my segment, I would like to give the number out again for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is at 1-800-799-7233. Again, this is for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number is 1-800-799-7233. In this segment, I've been talking about domestic violence against men as well as domestic violence against women. And again, people assume that men are not victimized by domestic violence. Like they assume women aren't strong enough to be the aggressor in their relationships, which is not true. And I think it needs to be talked about because there are a lot of battered women. A lot of battered men out there. It's just not battered women. And I also believe that in talking to men that I've met, even strangers that have discussed the fact that they have been battered and beat by women, they're reluctant to come out and talk about it because they're laughed at. People laugh at them and say it's not true, or how can a woman beat your ass is what they tell them. In their words, that's what they've been told. The same way there's been men abused physically. They've been raped by women and they've been laughed at. They've been sent away from police stations. They've been called punks. So the same is going to report abuse, domestic violence against a woman. They're laughed at again. It's like it's a double standard when it comes to domestic violence because men don't have a voice. And I think it needs to be talked about. And I've always been raised to where if a man does not lay hands on you, you don't touch him. And I think a lot of women out there feel, okay, well, he's a man. I can hit him. I can do what I want because he knows I'm a woman not to hit me back. But see, what women need to understand is there's a lot of women out there that don't teach their sons not to hit women. I taught mine not to hit women, but there's a lot of women that don't teach their men that they should not hit women. So a lot of these boys grow into men and they hit women. A lot of the little boys are hitting women. There's kids in grade school that call themselves dating in grade school or at junior high, and they're being abused already. And that's the boys, girls, or whatever relationship they're in. And it has to be stopped. I think people need to be more open and talk about these things so that men can see that they can talk about it without being laughed at, because it's not a laughing matter. It's not something that should be ever laughed at from either side. It's not a laughing matter. Excuse me, I said manner. Okay, but as I stated before, it's not a laughing matter. It's a subject. I know there's a lot of subjects that people hate touching on. They do. And one of them is this one. They don't want to admit the fact that there are a lot of abused men out there. I've seen it. I have seen it. And I believe that they need to help these men. Don't just help the women, help the men. Just help everyone. No one should be in a relationship with domestic violence, whether it's adults or kids. I think it needs to be talked about. I think they need to make these helplines to where men know that they're open for them too. It's just not women. If they're being abused, tell the men where to go if they're being abused. But don't just sit here and act like that it does not exist with men being the victim, because it does. And also I was doing some research, and I just wanted to see where most of the domestic violence was coming from in different areas, different countries. And the UN did a report. They did a number of different studies, actually, in at least 71 countries, found domestic violence against women to be prevalent most in Ethiopia and Syria. Okay. They did like a top 10 of the countries that have the most domestic violence. I can say that they reported the domestic violence against women. I didn't see much of reporting against men that were being abused, but to be honest, in certain countries, women really can't do much. So they really might not be the abusers most of the time. But it stated that number 10 was Niger, 9 was Sudan, 8 was Mali, 7 was Iraq, 6 is Congo Democratic Republic, number 5 was Central African Republic, number 4 was Pakistan, number 3 was Yemen, and number 2 was Afghanistan, and number 1 was Syria, Arab Republic. Okay, that's other countries. Now, when you get to the United States, the top 10 out of those, number 10 was Texas. Number 9 was Tennessee. Number 8 is Georgia. Number 7 is South Dakota. Number 6 was New Mexico. Number 5 was South Carolina. Number 4 was Oklahoma. Number 3 was Nevada. And number 2 was Louisiana. And number 1 was Alaska. Now, that one threw me a little bit with it being Alaska. But I've been reading a lot about Alaska. So I know things aren't as we all thought in Alaska. So number 1 is Alaska. So I've given you the top 10 countries with the most domestic violence and the top 10 states. Okay. And I've also given out the number, which I'm going to give out one more time, for the domestic abuse hotline, because that's a number that anyone that's experienced domestic violence should have on hand, and that is the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, which again is 1-800-799-7233. Again, 1-800-799-7233. I hope that this segment has helped someone out there. I hope the number, if you're out there and you're dealing with domestic violence and abuse, rather physical or mental, I hope that you put this number to some use so that you can get help. If you feel that you can't get out, they can tell you how they can help you get out of the situation that you're in, rather male or female, female, male, whatever the case may be, they are here to help you. And if you're a male and you're dealing with the domestic violence, you don't have to be ashamed to talk to these people, because it happens. There is definitely domestic violence against men. It's out there. Now, why we don't talk about it a lot, I don't know, because it should be talked about. But again, like I stated before, it's one of those subjects, kind of like a subject about race. People shy away from talking about it because they feel if they don't talk about it, then they don't have to accept that it's there. They don't have to have it right in front of them. They don't have to deal with that issue, and that's the problem. That's the problem with domestic violence and domestic violence against men. If it's not talked about, then they don't have to actually deal with the problem. So that's why I decided to do this podcast, this segment on domestic violence, and then add some things in there about men, because it happens. And the sooner we all start discussing it, the better we can make the situation. We can get rid of it, or at least calm it down some, because when you turn on the television or you read an article, there's always something talking about husbands killing wives, or wives killing husbands, or murder suicides, because people aren't dealing with their issues. They don't deal with them. They don't know how to deal with them. So the only thing that they see fit in their minds is to just in their lives, in their partners' lives, in their children's lives too. And that's not cool. That's not good at all. So if we can get this people to talking about it and get people to getting help that they need. If they get the help that they need, we won't have so many casualties when it comes to domestic violence, because it's happening more and more every day. And since the pandemic started, it's gotten even worse due to the fact that people are arguing more about money. They're in like financial binds. Their money is not where it should be anymore. So that's a cause for domestic violence, because they can't make ends meet. And, there's anger within the relationship. So again, if you're listening to this and you're dealing with these situations, no matter where you're located, you could use this number, 800-799-7233. And that's the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Please, if you're dealing with domestic violence, utilize this number. Utilize the resources that's out there. Get the help that you need. And don't feel ashamed to do it. Okay? I would like to thank all of you for listening to my podcast known as Life as It Is with me, Dora Middleton. And until next time, take care.